Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Waymeyer, and this is After the Silence. So, I wanted to create this podcast as a space for conversations that many of us experience, but unfortunately, very few of us feel comfortable speaking about it out loud. It's conversations about grief, about loss, about trauma, about the moments in life that change us forever. But it's also about the resilience that can grow from those moments. Because the truth is, grief touches every single one of us. But for something that is so universal, it's still something that we often feel incredibly alone in. People don't always know what to say. Sometimes we don't know how to explain what we're feeling. I know that was the case for me a lot of times. And many times, the world around us moves on long before we're even ready. So that's where this podcast begins. Grief has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. It's something that shaped my childhood, shaped my adulthood, and eventually shaped the work that I feel called to do in the world today. Over time, I began to realize that grief is not just about death. Grief can come from so many places. It can come from losing someone we love. It can come from divorce. It can come from trauma, from the loss of a relationship, or a dream we thought our life would hold, from changes in identity, health, family, or the way we thought our story would unfold. And one of the things I started noticing more and more is how many people are quietly carrying grief. People show up to work. They show up for their families. They show up for their responsibilities, all while holding something incredibly heavy inside, something that often goes unseen, something that often goes unspoken. And I began to feel this pull, almost like a quiet calling, to create a space where those stories could be shared. Not fixed, not rushed, not minimized, but witnessed. Because sometimes the most powerful form of healing begins simply with being seen and heard. So the name After the Silence came from this idea that there is often a moment in grief where everything goes quiet. Sometimes that silence happens right after a loss. Sometimes it happens because the people around us don't know what to say. Sometimes it happens because the world expects us to move forward faster than we were able to. But there's something important that happens after that silence. There is this moment when someone finally tells their story. When someone says the thing they've been carrying for years. When someone realizes they're not the only one who has walked through something like this. And that's what this space is meant to be. A place where silence can finally be broken. Some episodes will just be me talking about the many different ways grief shows up in our lives. Because grief isn't just one experience. There are many types of grief and many ways it can live inside our bodies, in our relationships, and in our daily lives. Other episodes will be conversations with people who have experienced profound loss, people who have faced moments they never expected to walk through, and who are willing to share their stories in the hope that someone else listening might feel less alone. These conversations will be honest. Sometimes they'll be a little heavy. Sometimes they will be deeply moving. And sometimes they will be incredibly inspiring. Because even in the midst of grief, there is often resilience. There is growth. And there is the possibility of healing. It is my hope for this podcast that if you are carrying grief, you feel less alone. I hope that you begin to understand that grief doesn't just follow a straight line. There is no perfect timeline. There is no correct way to feel. There is no right way to heal. Grief, it can show up in our bodies, in our emotions, in our relationships. It can just show up just by the way we move through the world. And learning to recognize it is often the first step in learning how to live with it. Because grief doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It simply means something mattered. It means something you loved was real. So in the next few episodes, we're going to start exploring the different forms that grief can take. Some might be familiar to you. Others might actually surprise you. But my hope is that by understanding the many faces of grief, you will begin to see yourself or someone you love with a little more compassion. I am truly grateful for you being here. I'm also grateful of being willing to listen to conversations that aren't always easy, but incredibly important. And if something you heard today resonated with you, I invite you to stay with us as these stories continue to unfold. This is After the Silence. And remember, nothing you felt while listening was wrong.